are you? So after the vacations, I'm back again with my interview series on Mona Lisa's talk show. And today I have another interesting guest with me. Her name is Maya Sharma Sriram, and I'm looking forward to talk to her. She is the author of Witch Goddess for Dummies. So let's quickly welcome Maya. Hi Maya, how are you?
Hi, Mona Lisa. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to an exciting session with you. And I'm well. I hope you're well as well.
Absolutely, I'm doing great. And I really would like to know that why did you choose this title? This is very intriguing.
Uh, okay, so I have spoken about this, because this book is now almost a decade old. So I've spoken about this before, and so if somebody's listening to it again, you've heard this before, but for the new ones, here it is. So it was like, I was I was hanging out at that time. I was working, so I was meeting a lot of women who were in their 30s, and all of them were trying to build a career. And often in the canteen, in the water cooler area, and I was a teacher, so in the staff room, the lament would be, "I'm too nice. I need to change." So the subtext seems to be that people are taking advantage of me because I'm too nice, and that actually caught my fancy. Um, is it really true? Probably not. But to me, it was like, what if? What if a nice girl decided to not be a nice girl? So then, what would she be? I balked at the idea of her becoming just a B word, because to me it had to be powerful, and something like that is just nasty. So I thought, what could she be? And then I conceived of this idea, and by that was the time when chiclet women's stories, women's fiction was getting popular. The Bridget Jones had just come out like less than a year before I conceived this book. And I thought, what if this was in that tradition of the self-deprecating humor, woman's journey, but in India? Well, the book is partly in India and partly not, because I was living elsewhere when I wrote this book. But the characters are very Indian, the issues are very Indian. And that is where this book came from. And because it was a quirky book, it was very much tongue in cheek. So I came up with all these ideas, and I gave this title because she decides to become one, right? So why not make it like a self-help title? It was just purely tongue-in-cheek, and somehow the publisher didn't mind the title, and we went with it. So that's why this thing is. Eventually, the book in itself, of course, is also tongue-in-cheek, but it's also got stuff that we women always think about a lot, and also the emotional baggage that family thrusts on you, finding your space in the world. This is many times that 20, 30 years ago, these women were first coming out in India and claiming their space. So a lot of that was negotiating that as well. Many of them were first generation, corporate office goers. So I was negotiating all of that in that book, basically.
Oh, that sounds really.
Sorry?
That sounds really interesting.
Um, I hope you enjoy it and you read it.
Yeah. So another thing that I would like to know that you've written this book and it got published somewhere near, I guess, in 2012, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
Yeah. So are you planning any sequels after this, or you are going to write something else?
No, actually, the publisher asked me when I submitted this, and they approved it, and I was going in for print. They actually called me in and asked me if I'd like to do a franchisee. But no, I have moved on from that space as a writer as well as a reader. I don't see myself revisiting. But having said that, as I was recently telling in another interview, if I ever do that, then I would probably write one from the antagonist point of view, because I pitted two women together. And 5 or 6 years after I read this book, I really regretted it, because I wish they had bonded and formed a sisterhood and fought patriarchy, because both of them were victims in their own way of patriarchy. And I realized it much after I finished the book. And I thought, if I do a sequel, it would be to redeem that problem and give her a redemption, because she's also a victim, I felt, of the situation. So, but I don't see it happening. But what if, if at all? That's all. But I don't see it happening. No,
Okay.
it's
So
a thought. I'm sorry.
are you working on anything new right now?
Yeah, I am working on my next novel, and it's very, very different. I've moved like 180 degrees away from this, so it's a very, very different novel.
So would you like to give out the genre if that's
Mm,
comfortable
I,
for you?
just the genre. I cannot. I don't. I'm not comfortable talking more than the genre,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's historical fiction.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's I'm willing to talk that much about it. So it's historical fiction. It's still too fragile for me to tell you more than that, but it's historical fiction.
I understand. So Meera is your main protagonist. So how did
That's right.
Meera, like you said, you noticed so many stories around you, women, and you say that you have also shown that patriarchy somehow make them suffer. So are you also going to show any like kind of underpinnings of patriarchy in the second book?
I think in all my stories, even in my short stories, and I think they will always be. I think it's something that I'm consciously and unconsciously aware of. So 100% yes, 100%. I'm hoping to be better at it in this book than that, because the things that were my blind spots in this book, I hope will not be there in the next book when I'm grappling with the women and the system. So yes,
Right.
definitely.
That's interesting because you are
Yeah,
going to explore patriarchy, and I think that creates a huge interest and scope for women readers, or apart
yeah,
from yeah,
because we never hear their voices, right? If you're
right,
talking about history, we never hear their voices. So what if they had a voice? What would they say? I think that is the fascination. When you read retellings of history, you're always looking to say what would the woman say.
right.
So yeah, it's that is the thing.
So Maya, I would like to ask you one thing here. Like presently, what we see in the situation these days, that it's more and more like women are becoming quite strong. Matriarchy is slowly taking over. We could say that, and also the things that we are seeing around us. So, do you think that in this era, patriarchy would be accepted because people are breaking out of that shackle?
So my take on this is a little different. I don't think the opposite to patriarchy should be matriarchy. That will be a
Hmm.
systemic problem. I think the opposite to patriarchy should be equality. It
Right.
cannot be another gender following the same power structures with just the female at the head. You're just defeating the whole point. The whole struggle is for equality. The whole struggle is not for women becoming the oppressors of men. That is just like such a wrong thing. So the idea would, if at all, if it happened, it would have to be that women are equal, but I don't see it happening at all. Where we seem to be regressing in so many important ways.
Hmm.
So I find it, and I'm not even talking just about India. I'm talking about even the so-called progressive West seems to be regressing. Laws are being formed controlling women's bodies in other countries by men, by
Right.
a panel, just a manel rather, of just, there's no woman there who's there when they make those laws. And rights are being taken away. So I would, when you start policing a woman's body, then I don't see equality, I don't see justice happening. The answer to rape seems to be don't go out at night. The answer to be raped seems to be, are you sure you want to go to college, or don't give her the phone. These seems to be the solutions to violence on women. So I don't see this structure being dismantled. But if it was, then matriarchy is not the solution. At least in my eyes, not the solution.
Right. Okay. That's a very interesting point of view you have just mentioned, and I think I would agree with that.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm glad you think the same.
Yeah. Okay, so I was just going through your profile, and this thing caught my interest that you co-hosted the Chennai Lockdown Literary Festival. So
Yes.
how did that happen? Like during the lockdown, you have created something so wonderful, and how
It
did it go?
was right. It was a complete. It was one of those utterly mad moments. So there is this amazing a journalist, writer, also the editor of a local magazine. Her name is Prasanna Ramaswamy. Shout out to you, Prasanna, if you're listening. So she was putting together a lockdown literary journal. And she had reached out to writer friends she knew who lived in Chennai. She was doing a Chennai-based lockdown literary journal. She wanted to capture. She wanted to capture that moment as it happened rather than reflective. So she wanted to make it a record. And she was working with another very good editor friend of hers, who's also her guide and I think mentor in some ways. He was the brain behind it, and the two of them were putting this together. So when she was talking to me about the piece I had submitted, and we were having one of those editorial calls, and I said, you know what we should do? We should do this lockdown festival. And within half an hour, we worked it all out. We figured out the panels. We wanted it to be a Chennai based. We wanted to call people in Chennai and give them a platform. And we ended up doing a 3-day event with 3 panels on some days and 2 panels on some days. And we had like a chick lit panel, we had a poetry panel, we had a journalist panel, we had an art history panel, and we had some political speakers. And it just fell into place just like that. And because it was locked down, because all of us were at home, we were logging in at 6 o'clock. People were working from home, right? So we were logging in at 5 o'clock, and it would go from 5 to 8, 5:30 to 8, something, different days, different times with minor variations. It was a 3-day festival. It was so much, it was so successful. We had 500, 600, 800 people logging in because we managed to get a space. Akila Krishnamurthy, if you're listening, another shout out to you. She runs even a company that does a lot of work with the arts. She generously gave us our space to do this because we were 2 people with just the barest ideas and no resources, and she helped us out by giving us the technical support, and we just did this together. And all the writers and the people were free, so they were able to. Nobody was traveling, everybody was at home, and everybody said, "What a good idea!" And everybody willingly and happily came to our panel. So we had K. Srilata and Shivakami for poetry. We had Chitra Mahadevan with Tulsi Badranath doing art and art history and the dance and art history and the temple sculptures. And then there was a chiclet panel which Prasanna made me do with Indu Balchandran, who's also written chiclet, and so on. There was one on politics, for political journalistic writing with Kavita Muralidharan. It turned out to be an amazing festival actually. So that's how it happened. By chance, purely by chance, and all of us were a little free and at home, and because of the lockdown, and we were desperate for some intellectual stimulation. So I think it was time, place, person, all of it together. I don't know if we can ever do this again, though, because the stars were aligned, so it happened.
Okay, wonderful. I was about to ask you, but are you not planning again?
We were, but we find now that we've all gone back to full-time work. She works full-time, Prasanna works full-time. All the writers are already traveling, busy. And then how do you put now online no longer has a charm because festivals are happening offline. So we're wondering if we want to take this offline. We make plans about it. Hopefully next year we will think of some format that works for us.
That's
interesting. It worked very well as an online format. So how to take it offline is a bit of a challenge for us right now. We're thinking about it actually. We haven't abandoned it, but it's been getting postponed.
Okay, that's really nice.
It was great fun.
So Maya, tell me, what is your writing discipline like? Do you prefer the night time or the daytime?
No, daytime. I'm actually reasonably regular with my writing when I have ideas. So when I'm in between ideas, I am, moping around the house like one depressed ghost. I don't have any ideas. But when the ideas come and I'm on a project, I'm pretty much at my table around 10 o'clock, and I more or less work through till 2:30, a little bit after lunch. But after 3, I'm usually tired by then. So my working hours in the morning. So it'll be like 9:30-ish. Sometimes even earlier, if the idea is flowing, then more or less anytime in the morning, all the way up to say post-lunch an hour, and then I'm done.
And do you ever procrastinate?
All the time. All the time. So yes, I do, but I try not to because the work doesn't get done. but I'm capable of it. I'm 100% capable of it. Yeah.
And have you ever experienced writer's block, or do you believe it exists?
Yes, actually, yeah. No, I don't think it exists. I think there's a solution to it, and I think it is. It was. I think we had to figure out the reason. For me, there were two reasons. One was there was. I think there was a little bit of fear. So I wrote book one, then I wrote book two, and the book two was moving away from my book one. So I struggled with the publishing of book two, and I think that gave me a fear paralysis. So between book two and the next set of writing I did, there was almost 3-4 years. And I think it was because there was, now looking back, I think I was a bit paralyzed with my ideas. I kept thinking the ideas were not good. I tell younger writers that if you want to be a writer, never be an editor, but just write your idea and don't worry about publishing. And I had lost sight of that between my book two and my next huge piece of work. And I regret, no, I don't regret. I think that was that. And there was also some amount of, just domestic thing. My mom came to live with me. My mom wasn't doing well. So there was some amount of emotional thing. So I think these two things coincided for a while. And then I had to sort of work my way through. I won't even blame my mother. I think it's the fear psychosis actually that happened to me. I mean, when your first book came published very easily for you, you sort of become smug. And the second book, there are no takers. I was grappling with, are all my books going to have this fate, which is the stupidest thing that a writer can do. And I did it for almost 3-4 years. And I didn't realize I was doing it then, but I'm telling you now with clear 2020 hindsight that is what happened to me. And that's not writer's block. That's just you being fearful. And I think any creator who's fearful is doomed, because I think the bravery is the first thing you need if you're going to go into a creative space, because nothing is sure. Everything is unsure, and you should know that, right? So that is something I realized much later. So I don't think there's. I think you need to figure out. It could be that your idea is you're working in the wrong medium. You should sit with a short story that's meant to be a novel, or a novel that could be a problem. Or you don't know your characters well. You need to sit down and talk to your characters and say, why are you here? Or you need to know your plot, or you need to know your core conflict. I don't think the setting is an issue. Usually it's the conflict, the character, and the form. If you can, one of this is stuck. And if you go away and think, or sometimes the idea is just not big enough for anything, and you're having this idea hangover, and you're sitting with the idea for far too long. Sometimes it's just an idea that's going to run to the ground, then you need to dump it and go after another idea. So I don't think there's writer's block in the sense of, the creativity is blocked. No, I think you just have to work your way through it and figure out what's wrong. And then you have to crack it. This is my reading of it. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, because I've interviewed some of the writers, and also like my take, I've noticed when you are not able to write, so what you should do, I usually do that. I take a break from it, and I let it brew, and I come back, and I have a fresh angle to it.
Yeah.
So it happens that you get new ideas.
You should go off and read. That will always replenish your springs.
Yes.
If you're not getting ideas, just start reading. Yeah, reading, nothing can beat, that the use of language, the use of character. Your well springs have to be regularly replenished with other people's work. So you just have to read. So, yeah.
So, okay, right. You're saying reading is always a great help. But I would like to ask you one thing, that when we talk about fiction, we see that fiction is like, easy flowing language. Sometimes there is like you need to use a dictionary, because some writers tend to write in a difficult way. But do you believe that literary fiction is always better when we are talking about novels?
No, okay, so that is the toughest question you're asking me, and I have to answer this very, very carefully, because I'm trying to figure out the balance here. So I'll talk to you as a reader now first, right? What do I personally enjoy more? I'm definitely drawn to the literary fiction. The books that stay with me, the books that have influenced me, the books that matter to me, the books that I hold dear, are all what you would call literary fiction. But does non-literary fiction have a space in the world? I think 100%, because a lot of people read, including me. Even I have done that when I'm traveling, or sometimes when I've had a very long writing session and I want a 2-day break, I'm not going to pick up a Julian Barnes. I'm not going to pick up an Alan Hollinghurst because I can't do it in 2 days, right? So I'm only going to go off and read a murder mystery or some historical romance or something which just tide me over for 24 hours so I can come back to writing. So does commercial fiction, within quotes commercial, I don't want to give it those any labels, light-hearted fiction, less serious fiction, whatever you want to call it, the non-literary fiction, does it have a space? Yes. But what am I drawn to? What matter to me? Literary fiction. What do you compare the two? I don't think you do. And a large number of people are choosing to read non-literary fiction. So there is something to be said for the value of a book like that, right? So I didn't feel that when I wrote this book. When I finished this book, I was thinking, this is not the kind of writer I want to be. I was relatively young as well in my first book. But much later, I realized that a lot of people have responded to this book because somewhere it spoke to them. So who are we to say that one book is better than the other or one kind is better than the other? I disagree. But as a reader, I have a preference, but that's a personal reading preference, just like every reader is entitled to have. As a writer, there are some themes I want to explore in a certain manner. Again, that's just my writing preference, but that doesn't make it any better than anything else. So I think both and everything has its place, and we give due respect to everything. I think that's my take on this divide. So, yeah. But they endure, you know.
Right.
See, what we never should forget is Jane Austen was not literary when she wrote it. She was commercial fiction when she wrote it. Shakespeare wrote for the masses. He wrote for the person sitting on the floor, not just for the king, right? He was not considered literary at the time. He had bawdy jokes and cross-dressing, men, women who became men again. All those kind of humor, which today we would say is crass commercialism. He wrote very racy stories. Now you think back and say they are classical. So who decides what is classical and what is literary and what's not, right? So no, I don't think we do that. It just has to, if it lasts and if it endures, then it is. That's the way. That's my take on it. After much heartache and pondering over what kind of writer I am, I have this answer. 10 years ago, I would not have had this answer for you. I'd have been very much more confused. So there is also me evolving both as a reader and a writer to give you this answer.
That's true. Okay, I would like to ask one more thing. You have written this book. You just mentioned that you have another book, second book you said. So,
Yeah.
would you like to? Is it a poetry book?
No.
Again, a novel.
It is also a novel. My poetry is, I'm not that much of a poet. I write poetry, and I've been published. And I've been published in reasonably good places. I'm not being fakely modest or anything, but I know very well that my strength. I think I have a better understanding of my fiction than I have of my poetry. So I'm more comfortable being a fiction writer. So that my second is also a novel. It's a complete manuscript, and it's also it's neither like my first book nor like the current book I'm working on. It's something else in the middle, and it's very much a literary novel. So it's one of those things that fall in between the cracks of defying any label. I don't know what it is, and I suppose one of these days I'll brush it up and send it out to the world. But right now I have some unresolved issues with it, so it's just sitting on my laptop. But I'm not abandoned it. So.
Nice. So, when which Goddess for Dummies came, how did you go for the promotion? Because it is believed these days that an author has to self-promote.
Yeah. So, so this was long before. Facebook was there. Insta was not there. Twitter was the only one, and Twitter had just started. So I had a Facebook page for it and all that. But what happened then was there were a lot of blogs. And there were a lot of people reviewing books on blogs. So I found, my editor also helped me in that. We found a lot of people who were reading in this space. And we contacted all of them, and almost all of them reviewed it. And they all gave me very good reviews. And then it got some traction because of its name. So, Cosmopolitan and DNA and Hindu and all started featuring it as some book to look out for. So that picked up some traction. So Vogue had it featured once. So the publisher had his own clout behind it, right? So it helps that your publisher is well known. So and this word of mouth of the blogs, those were my big things actually. Some of these magazines featuring it, some magazines reviewing it, and all the blogs reviewing it. That was my. There was no great space for online. We had some Facebook. There was not even these things didn't even exist then actually, or it was just beginning to. Nobody had figured it out, so none of that happened. But the this was basically it, and then there was of course word of mouth and friends telling friends.
I
And so
noticed
on.
that it has been published by Rupa. So did you face any difficulty, or it was a smooth
Oh, it was
to
amazing.
pitch your
That's because it was very, very, it was a wonderful experience because I had a great editor. So the editor who picked up this commission, like she was the commissioning, she's still with Rupa, but she's doing non-fiction these days. And a shout out to Kaushalya Saptarishi. She found, okay, so what happened was I had won this Elle Fiction award and she had read my short story there. And since she reached out to me and the conversation started like that, and then I told her I had this book, and then from there it was very quickly acquired by Rupa. And she was an amazing editor. She's a very keen eye, so she really gave it a very good shape. She worked with me to give it a good shape. I was a first-time editor, a debut writer. I had all the debut writer faults, right? There was overwriting and not enough writing in some places, and overwriting in some places, and lack of focus in the scene and stuff like that. Typical first-time mistakes were there. So she really she was able to point out those things to me, and then I would recraft it, and we worked on it. And she gave it a lot of time. She spent 6-8 weeks with me, going through the book and helping me polish it and making it a proper manuscript, a proper publishable book. So I had a great editor. I think that was the thing. And we had a rapport. We got each other. She got my book. I think that's the thing. She got my book. She got my quirky heroine. And I have this mock makeup rules running through the book. You're not supposed to take it seriously, of course. But she got it. She enjoyed the humor of those random rules, and she'd laugh at me when I made those rules. And all mad rules, completely crazy rules.
Yeah.
If any woman actually to follow it, it's a disaster, a path to disaster. But my heroine was insane. I mean, she's like she's losing her bearings, and just when she's doing all this, and then she has to find herself. So in her journey, when she loses her bearings, she comes up with these rules. Because she's such a normal, typical girl who went to school and followed rules. She doesn't know how to exist without rules. So she makes up the rules as she goes. And my editor got that madness also. She realized that it was quirky. She got the humor and she supported my idea. And the publishers also really took to the idea. They didn't have a problem with anything. So it was absolutely smooth. It was a wonderful experience. I'd absolutely go back with my next book to them. If they say no, then it's a different story. But I would go back to it because distribution also was fantastic. My books were available in Kashmir, in Warangal station. People bought it in all the oddest of places actually. So I had an excellent experience with Rupa.
That's really wonderful.
I could have marketed better. I could have marketed better but I was a first-time writer and with no awareness really of how the book industry worked. So now I know what to do with my next book better, but I didn't know it then. And I was also like having a little bit of like my editor calls me. She says, "You were being coy about the book." Yes, I think that's a good word. I didn't know how to go and shout out and say my book is here. I didn't know how to do that then. But so there was the only area I wish I had the savvy or more support would have been, or guidance would have been in the marketing. But otherwise, it was a fantastic experience.
But I think it's not late still. You can do it because social media.
Now you can, yeah. Absolutely. I'm talking about then when there was no Insta, there was nothing except, and in fact, Facebook had just started. We had all gotten out of Rise and moved into Facebook. So not even everyone you knew was already in Facebook. It was that nascent a long time ago. So, that was not then, but I'm saying like since then, of course. Now you don't need anything. Now it's whole different We can do so many things now, actually, which then
Exactly.
we could not have.
Okay, so I was just going through the book and I read few of the rules as well. So I was just about to ask you, that how did this idea come to you that you should put up some rules? Like there
I
are
don't.
some many rules, I guess.
Some 31 or 35 years old. I don't know. I think it came from the character. So my character was not just a good girl. She was the typical girl who, the typical many of us in India. This is a common thing, right? You go to school, you follow all the rules. You're a rational creature. You do maths in school. You do science in school. You're a follower. You don't break any rules. You live by the rules. So
Correct.
I created a character who lived by the rules. And now she was going to go do something majorly dramatic for which there was no guide or path. And she didn't know how to do it without rules. So she says, you know what, I'll make up the rules. Because if she didn't have the rules, she wouldn't know what to do next.
Mm.
And so she starts making up the rules. And the rules are, of course, completely whacked. That's only word for it. It's not. It's completely crazy rules, but that's what she's having this moment of absolute madness to go and do something like this, right? Because why would you do this to yourself? And then she decides to do this. Then so she comes up with these whacked rules. Then she, like water finding balance. She finds balance. She figures out who she is. She finds her own identity and what she actually is, and that is the story. It's her journey as she tries to find her identity. The only thing is, I've written it instead of taking the
Mm.
serious, melodramatic. It went the
Correct.
quirky, fun way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I would say that. Yeah.
that's wonderful. So Maya, this was really a wonderful interview, and I had a great time. And I would really request the audience, please pick her book, Witch Goddess for Dummies. The title is really intriguing. That's what caught my attention. So I'm going to read it soon and review it.
Thank
And
you.
I wish you all the very best for your future books and your journey as a writer. Lovely having
Thank
you
you.
today.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed revisiting Witch Goddess for Dummies after 10 years, after a decade. And to realize now what all I had done subconsciously in my book or unconsciously in my book, when you ask me these questions, I'm forced to go away and think about why I did it. And I'm having new insights about my book. And thank you for that. It was a lovely session. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you for pitching my book a little bit to others. I really appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to your review of my book. Thank
Definitely,
you. Thank you.
definitely, I will review it.
I hope all of you had a good time listening to us.
Yeah.
Right?
It was a pleasure having you. Thank you, audience, and also please watch this video. It will be soon available on YouTube, and the audio podcast will be on Spotify. Bye, all. Have a great evening.